Vi är Spelskaparna.
Welcome to Spelskaparna. This episode will be in English because the guest today is Dan Malone, the guy behind Amiga classics such as Speedball 2 and the Chaos Engine. We're going to talk a lot about pixel art today. Welcome, Dan.
Hello there, how are you doing?
And with me, I also have a previous guest on Spelskaparna, Mattias Kylen, who has worked on huge AAA games such as Halo, and also knows a lot about pixel art, and currently, just recently, started out his own studio, C77 in Seattle. How are you doing, Mattias?
Hello, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
That's awesome. And maybe, Mattias, if I start with you, when did you get to know about Dan Malone?
Oh, I was a young teenager. I got my Commodore Amiga 500. Back then, I had no access to actually buying games or stores. My friend had games I could copy. I'm apologizing for that, Dan.
Right.
But one of the first games that he showed me and that I copied from him was Speedball 2, and it was a stunning game to me. I had never seen anything like it. I loved it from the very first second. It sort of kickstarted me into being interested in art in the first place. I didn't draw anything on paper even before I started doing pixel art. And I started to realize that this is a profession. There is someone who has made this, who's getting paid for it. His name is Dan Malone. And then I was wondering the whole time, like, can I be like him? Can I do that same thing?
Wow, that's amazing.
And here I am, almost 30 years later. I have been in video games and doing art for 22, 23 years now.
Fantastic, that's cool.
So thank you so much for that.
Great. It's my pleasure. That's amazing. It's amazing to hear stuff like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's great. So Dan, how did you end up in the game industry?
Yeah, well, I was always drawing comics as a kid, and I was actually trying to get into the comics industry. Making my own comics. I was also doing a lot of role-playing work on like Dungeons and Dragons, and I was writing my own campaigns and guiding campaigns. So like as a dungeon master and working on comics. And it was purely by accident. Palace Software, but for advertising for. Well, I was also very much in Marvel Comics is my first love. American Marvel Comics. As a very young kid, I was trying to draw like Jack Kirby and John Buscema. But then, as I got older, and 2000 AD came out in this country, and I got into that quite late, around about issue 200, and really got blown away by it, and started being really inspired by artists like Brian Bolland, Mike McMahon, to name a couple. And this advert, I was at art college, and I left art college with a portfolio full of comic work. And I was for about a year just trying to kind of work on that. And an old art tutor of mine put me in touch with an advert in an old industry magazine. It was actually a design magazine called Campaign. And it was advertising for a 2000 AD style comic artist. And that was Palace Software. And I came down to London for that interview, and I didn't realize until I'd got to their offices that it was computer games. So it was purely and totally by accident that I got into games. I didn't have a lot of interest in computer games up to that point. It was, I was doing a lot of role-playing work, like I say, Dungeons and Dragons and, like Games Workshop stuff. So it was game work, but not computer games.
But was it disappointing to need to do pixels instead of like?
Yeah, I will admit this. It was. I got a bit of a shock. I had to really downsize everything. I was really at the time into real pen and ink extravaganzas. Really kind of high detailed comic dynamic realism, and I was really charging on that front. And to downgrade at the age of I was about 22 years old to pixel work was a real, it was it was a massive culture shock, and it took me a little while to get to grips with it. I mean, to put an in-house editor together for sprite work on Antiriad, but I was basically up to that point drawing the sprites on a piece of graph paper. It was that basic for me, so it was a massive downscale. Yeah.
Did you always do it on paper first, or did you start using like doing your art on the computer directly at this point in time?
I was always, and to this day still, work on paper first. Yeah, it helps me think, and there's a lot of stuff you can do quicker on the computer. And when I scan my stuff in, and then once it's scanned in, I won't go back to the paper unless I'm trying to work something out, like a particular hand grip or shape. I'll revert to paper just to figure it out. But always paper first. Yeah,
because at this point in time, making pixel art there wasn't really that many people you could look up to. As Mattias told us that he could look up to you, but from your point of view, you had to invent everything yourself, or what was that the case?
Yeah, pretty much, actually. It was the case. We had the arcade machines. I used to refer to arcade machines. So I could see again, you had the cathode ray tube screen, so the pixels blur. So you start to see that chromatic blur and that kind of anti-aliasing, and I was referring to that. I was referring to arcade games quite a lot. The first work I worked on was a ZX Spectrum, so it had only one color. So it was pure, white pixels, colored, of one of the 7 colors you could have on a Spectrum. And when you went across to this Commodore 64. The pixels were twice the size, or twice the width anyway, and 3 colors with 1 transparency. So, I learned about color using computers. That's when and certainly when I got to the Amiga stage, I really learned about color in a way I hadn't up to that point with pen and ink. So it was very influential on me in that way.
Yeah.
Cheers.
And how did the shift in screen resolution affect your job?
Yeah, it was really exciting, I've got to say. I mean, I 2 or 3 years at Palace Software, and I worked on Cauldron 2, and I did Sacred Armor and Tyriad, and then I did a game called Super Thief, which never got released. It was, again, my own concept. But I was using the high-resolution mode in the Commodore 64 for the sprite work, and we were basically printing 3 sprites at once, right, for this game. So we cut down our sprite number on screen quite dramatically for this game, and the main character also, he had 3 high resolution. I say high resolution because it was Spectrum resolution, which is coincidentally the same kind of resolution as the Amiga and the Atari ST.
Yeah.
So I could make a more smooth sprite in the Commodore 64 because I was really hungry for that kind of resolution. And we had that game running. That game was actually finished, but it never got released. But we went straight on to the Atari ST after that, and I was like so excited. I had 16 colors per character, 8x8 pixel square, and of course the higher resolution. And it wasn't. I mean, I did the whole of Super Thief on the Atari ST, and it wasn't until I got to the Bitmap brothers that I had proper access to D-Paint and the Amiga. So it was huge. It was like I could do more. I had more memory. I could have more frames of animation. I could have more detail in the characters, which up until that point, when they're like Lego, they're like true Minecraft style characters.
Yeah.
Huh. It's interesting when you came from comics. It seemed so limiting to have the C64, but as soon as the resolution get increased from that feels like all the opportunities now when I got so many pixels.
Yeah, this is it.
Even though it's still limited.
yes. Oh yeah, because after that initial shock, and I got used to that resolution, and then the Amiga, the 16-bit comes along, and it's like, okay, I'm ready for this now. I mean, if it had happened a few years later and I'd turned up with my comic portfolio, Well, like you said, there's no reference either. That's the point, apart from the arcades. So, yeah, by that time I was really excited. Yeah, it was, and of course, Speedball 2 was the first Amiga game I worked on. So yeah, it was cool, man. It was a genuinely exciting time in the industry.
Yeah, something I think is really cool is that at this point in time, usually many games were driven by programmers because you had to be really techy to be able to create a game. But it seems like the games that you have worked on have, even though they are a big challenge to make, like technically, the art has been very much in focus.
Yeah, and certainly with Palace Software, hence the advert for the comic artist, the 2008 style comic artist. That was very much, I mean, they said to me, look, this programmer's here to make your ideas work. So, I mean, honestly, it was hilarious sometimes, because, this guy called Stan Skemmery worked on Antiriad. So we were working very closely together. So he would give me, I'd say, look, I want this, this, and this. And then he would say, right, you're going to have this, this, and this in this way or that way. How do you want it? So they would give me a ballpark figure to work within. But it was always, from day dot for me, it's about pushing the graphics as much as we possibly can. Definitely, yeah. And of course, I mean, these guys back then, 8-bit and 16-bit programmers, they were brilliant. I mean, they were working for them also. There was no real benchmark for them they were just trying to get the most they could out of the machine. So we would work together, but yeah, obviously I'd have my knuckles wrapped quite a lot of times and take them, barter with them. Can I have this if you take that? Can I have more frames here? That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when you were still at Palace, did you have any contact with other gaming companies, or did you only work in your
it was pretty
isolated
isolated that in that time as such. Those early trade shows were happening, so we had Bullfrog. We were, and of course, I had a lot of contact with Bullfrog at Bitmap Brothers. Actually, funny enough, Pat Mills, the guy who invented 2000 AD, we nearly did a game with him.
How old were you when you started at Bitmap Brothers?
I would have been 22. Yeah. And there was, back then there wasn't a lot of paid work for games artists. There was like pretty much one of those early first, right, we're going to pay you a wage to do our graphics kind of thing. Yeah. So that got me to London basically, because I was up in Suffolk and I moved to London, got a job, and that was the start of that. Yeah.
And they paid you enough to pay rent and
yep. I got 90 pounds a week, 90 British pounds a week to work on my own games. I mean, I was doing all my own concepts back then, so it was a real dream job actually. Once I got used to the downscaling and detail, I started to realize that I can make these games, I can design these games, and it was very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have a proper salary from the start, Mattias?
No, my very first game was a guy in Switzerland who asked me to work on speculation purely, and
right.
And he couldn't spell my name right, and he put the.
I still get that. I still get that today. Can you do this? Can you do this on spec? It's like, oh God, I'm too busy, mate. Have you got a budget?
Yeah. And he didn't put the right year on the contract. I at least wanted it in writing that I should receive something.
Well,
if it was making any money, but he couldn't manage to make a contract even. So I worked a little bit for 6 months, and it got released.
Oh.
I found it on eBay last year, actually.
Oh, wicked.
It was one of the very last games of the Amiga era. It was on Amiga 1200 CD32.
Right.
But yeah, I was very proud to at least. It felt I was professional. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that it got released is more than for most people at their first gig, I think. But Dan, Bitmap Brothers, what was your first impression when you started work there?
Yeah, I mean, it was different. It was out in Wapping, so it was quite a kind of hike to get out there, and it was very quiet out there as well. I'd come from the Scala Cinema in the middle of King's Cross, which is the opposite of quiet, and so in terms of I get inspired by things around me, all anything. I can just walk down the street and it makes me think of things. So King's Cross was great, whereas Wapping was very quiet. So it was much more self-contained in that way. I went into the office and that was your lot, right, let's do this. And of course, they put me straight onto Speedball 2. Said, have you seen Speedball 1? I said, yeah, I've been playing it, Said, right, this is Speedball 2. We're going to have a double the pitch size, start coming up with some, look and feel. We want to switch the angle from just top down to showing more of the character's body. So basically, yeah, I was put in a corner and just told to get on with it. And I was left alone for a couple of weeks, and I was playing games and just getting into the feel of the 16-bit more. I mean, I'd worked on the Atari ST, so I already had that. And yeah, there was Eric there, and Mike Montgomery, and Steve Kelly, and that was it. Actually, there was another person there. There was it was Annie. There was Annie. Annie was there, and so yeah, it was just those three and me at the first. Of course, Mark Coleman was in Wales. He worked from there. He was freelancing. So yeah, it was mad. I'm like, right, this is different, And of course, I knew the work they'd done, so I was like, yeah, this is where I want to be. So, I mean, I just got my head down, and like I say, it was quiet, and I just got my head down, put my music on, and got on with it.
So for the listeners who haven't played Speedball 2, maybe Mattias, you can tell a little bit what it's about and what it meant for you when you first tried it out.
So there was several sports games on the Commodore Amiga at the time, and also some on the consoles. But this was sort of a futuristic American football type of sport. It has a lot of charm, and there's a lot of charming events going on at the same time as you're playing this sport game. You're controlling the characters top down, and you're fighting and throwing a metal ball around, passing it around, and you beat each other up a little bit. Once in a while, the audience, you have an ice cream salesman that screams ice cream.
Yeah, I love that bit.
And then you're also in between the matches. You're sort of a manager of this team, Brutal Deluxe, if you're playing the league. Yeah. And there was also just a regular skirmish, like you can play against each other on the same computer. I played against my brother quite a bit, my friends.
Excellent.
It was a great game. It had tons of had that arcade feel, really snappy, quick menus, easy to understand. But also there was a meta game too, with the management structure in the league. I loved the whole thing, and as of course the artwork was hugely inspiring and amazing to me.
Cool, man.
What stood out with the art compared to other things you had played at the time?
It was just more slick. Now I know the terminology. Then I didn't know why it was so much better, but it felt like it had more color and more resolution. And that's because, Dan, I think you did your palettes and the colors really well, and you also you knew how to anti-alias really well. And so with good anti-aliasing, it feels like the screen has more resolution. And like I like to call it out back then, you tried to work with the limitations to make it feel like you had more colors or more resolution than the hardware actually could give you. And I thought the game was just very polished and perfect, and there was a lot of splash screens and stuff that set you into the mood in a really efficient way.
Cool. Yeah.
How did you gain that kind of skill, Dan?
Again, in comics, I think the anti-aliasing, like Mattias says, is so important because it defines your character, and if you can define your character more, then you will go for it. So those extra colors, I mean, the higher resolution, but also the extra colors. I had 2 or 3 shades of gray and 2 or 3 highlights, and then the rest would be a base color. So you had 16 color sprites, but it felt, I mean, the palette was, also it's a 500 plus color palette. So there was more range of color for each. There's more range of shade for each color. So I mean, obviously, I used to use purple a lot with grey because there was this one shade of grey I just couldn't get. So you try and use another color to substitute it out to get that smoothness. It's basically about hiding the pixels. I just wanted to hide the pixels. I didn't want you to see any pixels. I wanted it to look like an arcade game. And yeah, you get like a sharp line, and you can 2 or 3 colors anti-alias that line to like just completely smooth. Certainly when you look at it through a CRT television monitor, you know, the whole thing with the chroma. Have you seen the Bitmap Brother book, Universe, that's come out?
Yeah.
Yeah, the screenshots in there are brilliant because they basically replicate how you would see those pixels on the screen. So you're constantly working with that, you know, really trying to make it blend and smooth and then give it the sharp edge. So that combination of smoothness and sharp edge was, yeah, that kind of metallic look was definitely, you know, I was pleased with Speedball too, I've got to say. And thanks, Mattias, for saying what you said. That's it's interesting you noticed that.
Oh, yeah.
Also. Yeah.
And I remember first time seeing it, and I tried to learn how to do pixel art. And I remember I used Action Replay to rip out some images and stuff.
Cool.
And I didn't realize it until then that you had been so clever with the palette, because I thought the teams, they're red and blue. But then I looked at the pixels on the helmets. I remember it was just a tiny little ring with a hue shift that goes towards red, and the tiny little pixel ring shifting towards blue.
Yeah.
But the rest were all the same colors.
Yeah.
And it was just this. You can be very subtle, but it still has a big impact when it's next to each other.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it was again with the CRT. You'd look at it and go, "Yeah, that's blurring. That's good. I'll leave that." And I'm normally quite kind of militant with my palettes. I'm like, "Got to be grey, got to be this." You know, it's just an OCD thing, I think. But those then, like I say, it taught me about color. Even though I was using very strange colors against other colors in order to get that smoothness. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that kind of shading towards red, that purpley color was used a lot as a link color between 2 other shades. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did all of this work with the pixeling and the limitations of the Amiga and the C64? Did that affect your classical art as well?
No, not really. Actually, I've got to say, that freedom of movement when you're drawing. Graphically, in terms of coloring, yeah, big time. Yeah, it's affected my drawing work. But in terms of how I draw, it's pure comic art, really. A combination of influences. Yeah, go on.
But in what sense has your coloring been affected of making art for video games?
Yeah, just understanding better lighting and how light affects a color. You know, everything's pretty much top lit on Speedball and on Chaos Engine. You know, nice and easy, bottom shadow so that you can really seat the character on the playing surface. And you know, so I'm thinking, right, top down light. Everything's got to be accurate regarding a top down light. So, and again, you're working in tight restrictions, so it has to, you know, it's like, okay, there's only a few pixels, so it's okay. You're going to find the route pretty quickly, but you're constantly juggling with shades and that. And, you know, if I look back on some of that stuff, and I haven't done in ages, you know, you can see the progression. It's like, well, blimey, I thought I got straight to that, but no, it took me about a week to get to that because there was certainly the angle of the players on Speedball 2 was something that I had no reference point at all. I was forcing that almost an abstract angle, which worked in the end, you know, isometric style, you know. But yeah, in terms of color work on my artwork, it's that simple top-down thing. I mean, I use it all the time, even now, but I will light stuff from the side. I will light stuff up from underneath, pointing up. But it's that basic kind of blueprint of how shadows are cast and how a light affects a color. And that's what I mean, you know, I gained more doing that kind of 16-bit work in terms of applying that to my artwork, if you like, my drawing stuff. Yeah, it's definite influence on that.
And during your time at Bitmap Brothers, what did the team structure look like?
Speedball 2 was me and Eric was designing it. It was his baby. And then a guy called Rob Trevelyan, he came in. So he was working from remote, but he would come in a few days a week. So there was me, Rob, And there was, of course, Mike there and Eric. I think that was it. It's about a 3 or 4 person team. We had Richard Joseph for the sound. And of course, Nation 12 did that brilliant tune. So they were coming in. But I'd worked with Richard before on Antiriad and Cauldron, and he did some work on Super Thief as well. So we knew each other anyway, so that was cool. But there was only about 3 or 4 of us working on the game. Well, it was me, one artist, one programmer, and Eric designing the game. Yeah, pretty much that.
And you had multiple projects at the same time going on?
Towards the end of Speedball 2, maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 months before the end of Speedball 2, I started work on Chaos Engine. So then I was double timing then, yeah.
Chaos Engine, that was on the 1200, right? Or was it still on the 500?
It was on the 500 and the 1200, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it came out on the 1200 as well. I mean, obviously by then, but I did all the work in the same palettes as Speedball 2. And of course, for the 1200, I bumped the palettes up. I had a chance to get my hands on it, and I could change the palettes up, and I did it. Yeah, I was pleased with that because they weren't. And I will leave them. I mean, no, come on, let's use the colors. So I was like, I really pushed that one and got it. So all the players had different colors. Red team, blue team, kind of thing. Yeah, so a bit more like that.
So you were juggling several projects at the same time?
Yes. Speedball 2 and Chaos Engine. For about 6 months, I was doing the 2. Then I went straight on to Chaos Engine. And I was still working on Chaos Engine when we started working on Bike or Havoc or whatever you want to call it. And we did I did about a year's work on that. Yeah, so yes, there would be, and there was also other stuff like we did a pop video, and we did I did some ideas for some other games. I would do like pixel concepts for other games, but mainly, yeah, it was those. I started working on Zed when I was still doing work on Havoc, so it was always projects would overlap like that. But I was full time at Bitmap Brothers, so I wasn't doing any other work for anybody else.
And from my perspective, when I was that young, I had no point of reference to what a success is. I just thought that Speedball 2 is so great, and I saw it in the magazines as being one of the best games out there. I just assumed you were all driving around in Ferraris and you got really rich from all this work.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of like, what was the reality back then of a good success? Perhaps not your games out there. I had no point of reference, actually. I still don't.
Yeah, there was that kind of Wild West gold rush thing happening. I got some nice royalties for Antiriad, and it was more money than I'd ever had. I certainly wasn't driving around a sports car. It wasn't. I mean, I bought myself a skateboard. I was a skater, so I hadn't bought myself a really nice setup in about 1986. I remember doing that. With Bitmap Brothers, we were on a profit share, so there was, if the game did well, there was definite bonuses there, and I was doing well. Yeah, I was doing okay. I was living in a nice house with a nice girlfriend, and it was a good life. I've certainly had more money then than I have now, that's for sure. But I was never, I never felt, loaded. I just felt like I was earning a good wage for working hard. I mean, a lot of my friends were designers in the traditional design industry, and I was earning, equivalent to their, art director there. So I felt like good. Yeah, it was a very good time to be alive in London. Yeah, I've got to say, it's a good life, but I couldn't afford a sports car.
Yeah.
Quite that good, but yeah, it was decent.
London is expensive, though.
Yes, it's very expensive. Yeah, it really is, and it is more than ever expensive. And I'm finding it hard to stay here because it's so expensive. Yeah. But it's a good place to live, but it does cost.
You also mentioned the Chaos Engine, but from all of the games you made at Bitmap Brothers, which is the one that you're the most proud of today?
Between Speedball 2 and the Chaos Engine.
No, all of the games that you made at Bitmap Brothers.
Yeah, well, it's actually between those two games. A guy called Phil Wilcox conceived the Chaos Engine, the Victorian steampunk thing. And like I say, I started working on that while I was still working on Speedball 2 because I was sitting beside him and he was telling me his ideas. And I'm like, what a great idea. Oh, my God, let's do it. And I was kind of like just drawing all the time, characters, ideas, scenario, like locations, trying to get the vibe right on that whilst working on the other game. And I enjoyed it. That was great fun. I'd say that period was the best period, finishing off Speedball 2 and starting work on Chaos Engine. Which is my favorite one out of the two. God, it's I just can never decide which one I like better. It's a real, it's a real draw with those two games. Yeah, for different reasons as well. So yeah, I mean, those are, out of all the games I've worked on in my career, they're by far and away my favorite games that I've worked on, and the games I'm most proud of as well.
At this time, you already mentioned you were pretty small teams, so you of course had a lot of impact as well on the end product.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go on. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to say that I guess later on when you worked on bigger projects, that feeling becomes completely different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's, I mean, I went from Bitmap Brothers to Sony internal, so that was PlayStation 1. And I was creative director, if you like, of this Porsche game. And a good team, and obviously more people to work with. But I was basically pretty much designing the game. So I was saying, let's have some characters, let's have the track situated here, let's have a backstory to make it kind of more interesting. Let's kind of funk it up. And I was doing all the backstories for the characters. So basically, I was still kind of had that freedom to design, very much so. And I was also working on another idea, which was nothing to do with any licenses, because they were doing the NBA license at the time, Sony, for PlayStation 1. I was working on an original project, which was my idea. So unfortunately, that didn't get passed, even though a lot of the development team wanted to work on it. There was like a vote, and they basically took on another license instead of doing an original game. So for the first time, I'm like, right, I can't express my ideas here. And I left after 9 months. No, a year. It was about a year I was there, and went back to a game that I was pretty much in control of again, which was Hordes, which is a Command and Conquer type game. Never got released, unfortunately. Spent 3 years of my life on that. Never got released. But yeah, so definitely
that's rough.
But there's more. I mean, it wasn't so much that Sony that it was another idea that I had to contend with. It was the fact that the structure was geared towards licenses rather than original projects, and that's why I left in the end. I mean, on Porsche Box the Challenge, I had full freedom to come up with an idea, but Porsche themselves had other ideas. So all of a sudden, you're compromising ideas, and the whole thing's kind of losing its original idea, its impact, its reason for being. So yeah, bam, straight in the face. But like I say, I went back. I was working on a PC game. Hordes was a PC game, and I did that for about 3 years till the end of the 90s. Having the freedom to conceptualize, and I mean, obviously, it was programmers working on it. They knew what they were doing. There was already a basis for this game in operation. I just had to I had to fill it. Come up with there was already a story running, because another very old friend of mine who I'd worked with before, Phil Thornton, he'd already done a year's work on this game. So I just said, Dan, you just take it over. And I'm like, all right. He's a good guy. He's a very good designer. Lives in India now. He's still doing games, but I don't. He's keeping his nose clean. He's keeping out of the general rat race. So I had that freedom again it's almost like Dungeons and Dragons. I could really come up with some good baddies, the Dark Lords, real sort of study in evil. And then there was no real good guys in that game. That was a real fun game to work on, actually.
What game was that?
A game called Hordes, which never got released. It's a System 3 game. Right, Last Ninja and all that lot. Last Ninja series, System 3.
Yep.
Mark Cale's crew, that was for System 3, yeah. So
okay.
It's a shame it didn't get released. It was a really nice game.
How did that affect you? Do you remember when it got cancelled?
Yeah, I was working late. It was about 9 o'clock. A guy called Tim Best, who was one of the guys there, Mark Cale, He said, Dan, can you just come through to the office? I'm like, yeah, I've got to finish this. He goes, "No, just leave that, come through to the office." It's about 9 o'clock at night. Went through, sat down, said, what's up? And Hordes has been canned. That was GT Interactive. They were publishing Hordes. Hordes being canned. And I'm like, Ugh. And I had this urge and dream to go to Japan. And I remember thinking, right, I'm going to Japan. And 2 weeks later, I was in Japan. That's what happened at the end of Hordes when it got canned. Yeah, I ended up living in Japan, and I got married out there. So.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's another story. But that's what happened at the end of that. Yeah, it was the end of the 90s, end of the century, and complete change up. Yeah.
Well, did you continue working in games in Japan?
No, I did actually go and see Capcom and another company. I went and see them and just showed them my work. And I wasn't working on game stuff. I was working on concepts. I did a lot of work on Speedball 3 actually when I was in Japan. I was just coming up with loads of ideas and just getting them down on paper. That was the only game thing I really worked on. I did a bit of graffiti out there. I was kind of really into did a few club flyers. I was into that kind of, I'm really into the kind of counterculture, and exploring that, comics being a kind of gateway in. So I was doing a lot of that kind of stuff and traveling around Japan. But the 3 companies I went to see, I showed them my work, and they were really, interested in what I had and who I was. But there was no real concrete position for me. And in Japan, it was back then, it's so regimented. I mean, it really, really is. And being a Gaijin, being a Westerner, it's a whole ball game. And a friend of mine's made a real good career out in Japan, and he's right up there. Speaks fluent Japanese now, and I'm like, wow, that's a tough road. He goes, oh yeah, you have to commit to this fully. You have to commit to this regimented. Don't leave before the boss. It's really, And I thought, after being in house up to that point, I want to be free. I want to be independent. I want to be independent so that I can work on my own stuff, for better or worse.
Yep. And Dan, you mentioned another game you worked on at Bitmap Brothers, Bike.
Yeah.
What was that? That was never released.
Yeah, that was Steve Kelly's baby, and it was nice. It was a side-on. I like side-on. I hadn't done a side-on game for Bitmap Brothers, and I wanted to do a side-on game because Look Down is quite challenging, or it was. I mean, once I got Speedball 2 right, Chaos Engine was a lot easier, but trying to work out that angle, I'd never seen the angle before, not something I could reference properly in detail. So I really had to break that and make it work. And Bike was a 2D side-on, so it's side-on scroller. And I'm like, yeah, I love it. It's so much easier to work on a character, just the side-on view. And yeah, it was mad. It was like, kind of scrolling, steep. It was like you ran on a rail kind of thing, So you had these rails, and I did about a year's work on it. I did loads of sprite work on that, all the rotations, because you had about like 8 or 9 rotations for different transitions, and then I'd do all the moves for that rotation. So there was loads of frames, loads of animation. And Steve Kelly, man, he's genius, he was making this work, and Gary Carr took over the work on Bike, so he did a fair amount of work on that too. But I'd already done a lot of background tiles. We had all the track work, and we had a couple of bikes, like sprite characters, which could go along the track work. So Steve had something to work with, and we had this mad little intro that we did, which was like really kind of graphic, and I really wanted this graphic kind of like countdown thing for Bike. So we were inspired by a Speedball 2 vibe, but basically it was kind of set in the Middle East initially, and it was all these mad kind of Aswan, all these mad names for the bike models, and I was getting into all the bike designs, and we're gonna have this kind of mad sponsorship thing going on, and like a future tech bike racing sport in the same vein that Speedball was a future tech kind of American football rollerball kind of style. So yeah, would have been inspired by Speedball 2, but taking it in a different path,
I would have loved to see some of that work. Do you still have it?
I don't have any of it. Mike might have some of it. I did another game which for a company called Ideaworks called Ride, which was a little lass, a little girl on a skateboard with a kind of bubble of energy, because the board kind of floats on this little bubble of energy, and she was using all the transitions and the big steep runs and the highs, and you could do mad jumps and that. So that was basically Bike, but not Bike, basically. And that never got released either. But I did all the graphics for that. I did all the graphics for that. That was nice, actually. Ride. That was Ride. So Ride is the little daughter of Bike.
Oh. Yeah, I got the book, the Bitmap Brothers Universe, but I haven't had time to read through it all. But as soon as I saw that project Bike, I'm like, oh, I know nothing about this. And it's right around that time of Speedball 2 and Chaos Engine, and I got really curious.
Yeah, I've still got a lot of drawings for Bike, actually. I've got a lot of sketches, a lot of storyboards. Yeah, I've still got them around somewhere. And I haven't got a working version. I've got some of the graphics, but I haven't got a working version. But it would have been nice. It could have been really funky and, and good. And because you've got that side-on look, you can explore details a lot. It's a lot simpler to work with than a top-down look. So I was kind of well up for it. It's a shame it didn't get finished.
How many projects do you reckon you worked on, and how many of them have been released?
Bitmap Brothers.
Or total? It seems like it's a common thing in your career.
Yeah, a lot of them. God, how many games? At least. Okay, games I've spent more than a year working on. Yeah. Let's use that as a benchmark, because there's a lot that don't get released or they get changed out of sight. And because I'm freelance, depending on my position within that job, I don't have much say over. That's the sacrifice I've made to be freelance, if you like. I've just done a lot of work I've had complete free reign on, and that's something else I've been working. That's another story, actually. But and it's reminded me of the kind of joy I got 20 odd years ago, 30 to 25 years ago, because I've got free reign on these games. That's coming out. There's a book coming out before Christmas with all these games in it. Yeah, I'll give you a little. I don't know if I'm not allowed to talk about this, actually, but it's a company called Raspberry Pi. You heard of Raspberry Pi, the little Raspberry Pi computers? Yeah. Right. I've done a lot of games for them. So, and I've had free reign to do that working with a programmer. I've been working under their tutelage, but it's classic games, and I've just reskinned them. So, but I've had free reign, and it's simple. It's the same. The basic mechanics of a 2D game is celebrated like that. Yeah. So yeah, there's a bit. It's going to be a book on how to code them, how to make them. It's like a educational thing. They do a lot of educational work, and that's what this is basically. But it's been an absolute joy to work on, because I've had the freedom to just be myself. And so for the first time in a long time, that joy of making a game has come back. But the original question saying how many games not released, if I've been working on for more than a year, I'm not including games that have been changed out of sight so that you wouldn't recognize them, but about 5 or 6 big games. Okay. Yeah, that I've had a lot of input into, not being released for one reason or another. Usually it's never to do with the quality of the game. It's usually to do with the company that you're doing the game for. That's that's the thing I can't control. So yeah, quite a few. There's actually a book coming out about games that never got released, and there's a game called Burnt Out Cop, which is a personal project with a great team called Infinite Lives, and there was 5 of us working on that. That was a PlayStation 2 game, and you're only going to see it. There's actually I think the website's still up online somewhere, but this book is telling the stories about games that were made that never got released, and this game, Burnt Out Cop, is in that book. So that's the only time it'll ever see the light of day is in that book. So
it's happened to me like twice or 3 times.
Really?
And it's always been so heartbreaking, especially when I was younger and I had worked days and nights on something.
Yeah, you do get a bit punch drunk. I'm now very kind of, I'm not blasé, but I'm like, oh god, it's not the first time this happened. Get over it. And I've got next job. I need some more work. I need some work. So I immediately go looking for work when that happens. But yeah, it's hard, isn't it? It's you put your blood, sweat, and your DNA into it, your tears into it, and then it just disappears in a puff of smoke. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's hard, man. It's hard.
It's
What
so
games-
anticlimactic. It's like the feeling. It's just a void of
Yeah.
nothingness. Yeah.
Anticlimactic. That's the word. It's just like, there's no kind of like end line. There's no kind of like, fireworks. It's just not there anymore. It's just not happening.
I was wondering about these Raspberry Pi games. If you buy the book, can you get hold of your art style when you make the games? Like, is that part of the deal?
I think that you have the explanation of how to code it, and then the assets are, I think they're downloadable, or you get a CD. I don't know how it's working. I don't know how it's going to work, but they do have a pretty big online presence with the Code Club stuff.
But it will be your assets. I mean, assets made by you.
Yeah. What you mean the graphics?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you should be able to download them. Yeah. It's
That's pretty cool.
It's all 2D retro stuff. So but it's not. It's like an 800 by 600 resolution screen. That's what I've based it on. So I've really celebrated 2D, but I haven't bothered with going pixel work. It takes quite a long time to do it, and I had to do these pretty quickly. I mean, I had to bust these games out basically. Which also made it interesting because I was just like, right, can I still do this? I don't have to worry about, low resolutions, and I don't even have to worry about palettes. I've got an unlimited palette because they're all PNGs, but each sprite, like one of the sprites, they're about 48 pixels high, so they're still, sprites, but there's none of the old restrictions, and I enjoyed it for that reason because it's like I've ever made a Speedball or a Chaos Engine remake. I'd go for that resolution, I just wouldn't worry, but there's that kind of, you want to try and, the magic of a sprite in those old games, I don't know if you can replicate it in the modern world, but there's a celebration there, which I really like to do. I'd like to do more of this kind of work. You're just kind of celebrating the old style without the restrictions, but you're trying to say, look, this is an old school vibe, right? But look at it, it's full of colors, it's got big explosions, it's got like lots of little special effects going on, like that. So that would be great. But these are pretty much limited to the original sprite numbers. So they're pretty much limited to the original game restriction. They're like old 16-bit games, basically, style.
Very cool. I remember like waiting for a sequel to Speedball 2 or the Speedball 3 or whatever for so long. And then there was one Speedball that came out later, a 3D game. And I think there's been rumors about other games. Or what was your feelings about that when the other games came out that you
frustration, I have to say. Speedball, it's become a bit of a sore point. It's, I'm quite prickly about it. I just want to see it done well, or I just want to see it done how it should be. But of course, that's just my vision. That's not everybody's vision, So, really, I've got to check myself and say, what can I say? If somebody else is working on it, they're going to do it differently to how I would do it. That's a fact of life. Whether anybody's interested in seeing how I would do it, that's another question. So, as regards those games, was it the first one? Was it the PlayStation game, wasn't there? That one.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty faithful representation of the original game, but you got to do more than that. You've got to make it bounce. There is an opportunity there to really celebrate various aspects of the original game in a way you couldn't before. And it was made. I had nothing to do with it. Enough said.
Yeah, and just in the news like a couple of weeks ago, I think Rebellion bought Bitmap Brothers and all the catalog.
Yep. Yeah. That's mad news. That is such mad news. It really is. Blimey. Yeah, I know. Wow. Yeah.
They haven't talked to you about it?
No, I haven't had any contact. I have been toying with the idea of contacting them, but I'll tell you something for nothing, right? I mean, in the last 20 years, every time I go for a job, I generally don't get it. All my work comes to me it comes to me. Any kind of, oh, Dan, are you busy? Oh, no, I'm not. You work for me? Yeah, Dan, I've got this job. Brilliant. And I get on with it. I very rarely get work that I apply for.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit punch drunk with that. It's kind of like, I'd love to work on Speedball 2. I would love to work on Chaos Engine 2, or Speedball 2.5 was my idea that I've had for years. And it's 2.5 because it's not 3D. Speedball 3 is 3D. Speedball 2.5 is a celebration of Speedball 2, the 2D game. And when I say celebration, I mean hundreds of frames of animation, probably 3D models which are rendered down to 2D sprites. I mean, I just go bonkers with that. I'd go, really open the hatches and just let it all out. 2.5 is a really beautiful idea. I'd love to work on Speedball 2.5. The problem is, I don't know what my role could be. If Rebellion did a new Speedball game, I don't know what my role could be. Maybe a bit of concept work for look and feel, but I've got ideas about Speedball 3 in my head already, and there might be conflict there. I mean, I've got some good ideas about the evolution of Speedball 2 to the next level. I put a picture up online actually called Son of Jams, and it's just basically a Speedball 3 poster, basically, but it doesn't say Speedball anywhere. It doesn't say Brutal Deluxe anywhere. It just says he's got a 3 on his shoulder, like a number 3.
Yeah.
And it just says Son of Jams, because Jams is one of the main star players in Speedball 2. So this is like his son kind of thing, And that's the sequel sort of thing, So, I have very strong ideas about how I'd want to see it done. So that would probably be a conflict issue, because I'm sure Rebellion have their own ideas. I mean, they'll have their own. They've probably got ideas already which they'd like to see in production. So that's where it's. But trust me, every time another Speedball, there was another one, Speedball Evolution came out, and I kind of knew about that a few months before they started development. And then I bumped into John Hare basically, and did some work for Asylum, who are no longer anymore. And we might be doing a Speedball remake. I'm like, really? And this was actually about a year before they actually started developing it, and about 3 or 4 years. I don't know when they finished it, but that was developed. I didn't know they were developing it because nobody told me. And again, when I saw it, John Hare actually said, "Dad, here, do you want to have a look at it on his mobile phone?" I said, "Don't show that to me. It's just going to piss me off." I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry, John. It's just going to piss me off, mate. And I never have looked at it. I've looked at a few screenshots online one day, but it's good. It will definitely affect me seeing it out there, because I put a heck of a. I mean, Brutal Deluxe. I named it Brutal Deluxe. It was a kind of thing. It was all to do with the club scene at the time. It was all, and the sequels, I want them to be really funky and kind of modern, but old school at the same time. And there's this mixture of vibe you can get. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, hey, if they contacted me, I'd be exciting, because what they're doing is just taken over British dynamic comic games, books, board games culture, and they're going to be they're the leaders kind of thing, So it'd be cool to work with them, but I don't know, man. I just don't know. I can't see how it would come out. Listen, said, Dan, go away for 6 months and come up with some ideas. That would be that.
But I mean, all the fans would, of course, want to see you being one of the persons working on it. Well, that's lovely to know.
Yeah,
let's cross our fingers and that they do the right thing.
It's very good.
Makes me wish I was a billionaire. I would throw money at this project.
Yeah,
I'll give you full freedom, Dan.
Yeah, oh mate, oh god, that nearly happened a couple of times actually. There was this talk, and we had a couple of lunches about it, and it was like, right, the man you got to speak to is Mike Montgomery. He's the man. You got to speak to Mike. I don't see Mike much actually. I mean, I love the guy. We don't hang out together or anything. Probably see him once every 5 years or something. So, but yeah, he's done. I'm pleased for Mike. He's hung on there till the bitter end, and he's made. He's got rid. He's handed it over to Rebellion, and he's probably doing all right now, so good for him.
Yeah. Him. And the reason but when did you leave Bitmap Brothers, and how did that happen?
Yeah, well, there was a fissure opening. I mean, Eric was showing less interest, and I went to India for 6 months, right? And I wasn't even sure I was going to come back, but I did. I went back to the Bitmap brothers. I was upset because we had some strong ideas about how we take Chaos Engine 2 forward, based on the original, and it was just chucked out the window. I mean, it wasn't even, it was pretty much bodily thrown out the window and ignored. And I found it pretty hard to take. I did all the work, and some of the work's really nice. I mean, I'm pleased with the work, the graphics, but I'm not happy with how the game was. It's not how I would have seen it. So I was pretty miffed at that. Although I worked diligently, and I wanted to look beautiful. And I was really pleased that Dave Gibbons, the artist of The Watchmen, the Watchmen artist, he did the cover of Chaos Engine 2. And I thought it was brilliant. Dave Gibbons has done he's drawn my characters. I was chuffed by that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was. It was really cool. I was a bit of a fan of his work, So, I remember thinking, I enjoyed it even less going out to Wapping, and I said, "Look, I'm freelance. I want to be freelance. And basically a friend of mine had an office, studio space in Soho, desk space available, and I'm like, I'm going to work there for a while. I'm going to do a few days a week there. I'll come in here once a week, but I'll finish Chaos Engine 2, and I'm still a Bitmap brother, but I'm going to be working from this office, this new place." And it was Soho. It was Soho in like the mid '90s. It was going off. It was fantastic, and I did that. I mean, I just came to a decision. So I think I was getting a lot of people asking me if I was what to come and join them, like Sony, and there was all sorts going on. So I'm there. I think I need a new challenge because I don't think it's going to work here. I don't think I'm going to be allowed to express my ideas like I had before. And I was told that. I was told that, look, we know what you're good at. You're going to be doing this. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to do this and this and this. Well, you're going to be doing this. And I'm just like, and I'm not very good at confrontation. I'm like, all right, okay. I think I better just get out of here. I think it's done. And I left. And that was it. I remember Mike coming down. I saw, he said, why are you leaving? I'm there, look, because you won't let me express myself. You won't let me design a game. Like you're an artist, not a designer. And I'm like, well, I don't think there's much difference in my case. I like to think I'm both. I can design games and I like doing graphics. I mean, it comes out in the form of graphics and comics and art. But writing stories I'm writing 2 stories now for myself, and hopefully maybe one day they might see the light of day. Who knows? I say 2. There's also Speedball 2.5, which I've got loads of it written down. Yeah, I've got a lot of that written down. In fact, I've got more written down than I have got drawings. So, yeah.
I don't get to express myself now. In what type of situation would that be? Like, where is that line in your mind?
Well, it depends what you're working with, and it's like the definition of a good brief, right? A good brief says, right, we need this, and this, and we need it in this style, referencing this kind of look, right? So that's a pretty good brief. But if somebody says, we need you to come up with some graphics, then you're like, okay, so what does that mean? What kind of graphics do you want? Oh, you just come up with something. Come on, do your thing. So you start to really invest in it. You start to say, okay, if this is going to work in the best way, then it's got to have this in place and it's got to have that in place. So you start suggesting stuff and you start, saying, look, this baddie's great, but you should have a little sidekick baddie, or you should have this kind of scenario where he comes out of this bush or something, right? And then if they say, no, we don't want that, it's like, well, what do you want? You have to brief me correctly. If you don't brief me in a correct, rigid manner, I can't read your mind and I can't give you what you want. I can only give you what I think is good, right? So it all comes down to the brief. I mean, I'm a freelancer and I must say I'm very fortunate. I've been busy for the last few years because for a few years I couldn't get work. I couldn't get any work. I mean, it's very hard to actually pick up some paid work. I mean, I've been pretty skint ever since because of it. But with the Raspberry Pi work, it's nice and regular and it's interesting work and I love it. So I'm kind of solvent again. But yeah, I mean, I will work on in any kind of capacity, from pure concept work and then, no, we didn't use that one, Dan. All right, fine. Here's my invoice. Bam. I'll move on to the next thing, Yeah, you feel it if an idea is compromised, or like I say, if the brief is, this is the game. Okay, fine. I'm not going to change your game idea. I'm just going to do graphics for you. Here you go. Here's some graphics, because you know what you want. But if you don't know what you want, then you start getting involved. Yeah. And if that's then counterproductive, if that's then argued with, then you start saying, well, do you know what you want? I had a beautiful game, which did get released in the end. It's a game called System Rush, and I spent about 3 years of my life working on this game. But the end release was a poor man's version of the original idea, and you could see it. And I'm there, why? I don't understand why you changed it. We fell out really badly at the end of that project. I mean, all the graphics they weren't just being changed, but they were being used in the wrong context. And I'm like, this is a proper mess. I don't know. Can't you see it? And the main artist, the lead, because I was like the concept and the creator, I was creative director. The team changed, and then some new guys came in, and then they got their buddies in, and I got kind of pushed out. But I'd started on the game about 1.5 years before any of them had turned up. And the original guy that commissioned me went AWOL. It's a very long story, actually, that one. But that game got compromised in the end and switched around. And like I say, we had a confrontation. It wasn't violent, but it was pretty, it was a pretty full-on confrontation, and I left there. So I'm like, right, okay, I've worked so hard to try. I was on this project before you lot were even here, and it's changed. The design changed about 3 or 4 times. I've got loads of work off that project, loads of stuff which I use now, like concept work. It was like a racing game set in the future, but it was like at the nano scale, so it was tiny, and it was like the whole point was it's tiny and all happening within this little electrode or something. The whole thing we had characters, we had a backstory, we had the works, and it got changed. I just carried on because I usually will see a project out to the end. I don't like leaving halfway. In fact, I hate it. I hate leaving halfway through a project. I feel like I'm letting somebody down, so I usually stick it out to the bitter end. But yeah, you can tell. It's a decision you make. It's like, do I want to stick this out? Do I want to put up with this, or do I want to? Like, if I care about something like Speedball 2.5, then yeah. I mean, if I don't do it my way, I'm not going to do it. I mean, I'm too old. I'm too long in the tooth, mate. I don't bounce like I used to,
It's really complex to make a video game. I mean, so many things can go wrong, and a lot of people working together, and the money can run out. Yeah, it's
and especially if you spend time doing something which is not going to work, and you can just see the thing heading towards car crash mode. It's like, damn it, man! All this money's being wasted on the wrong direction, or and 6 months later the project's bloody canned, and that happens. Yeah.
Time is running away, but I was wondering, Mattias, is there something more you want to talk about before we wrap up?
I got really into reminiscing here. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine.
I keep thinking, like, I'm thinking about Speedball 2 and being this perfection to me, and I keep thinking, like, what if you had gotten like a month or 2 or 6 or 12 months more to work on it, Dan? What is there anything you would have changed?
In terms of graphics, I pretty much used every single available pixel I could. The same with Chaos Engine. There was nothing left in the bank. Nothing, It's like, and it's like, okay, you've got all you can. We can't squeeze another pixel out of this. So you're there. And the thing is, when you're working, you're designing at the same time. So you're working on something else, and you're thinking about the background, and then you put a few bits of sketching down. Right, when I come back to the background, I'll put that in there. So you're constantly designing. And if you're on a game for like 2 years, like say Chaos Engine, a couple of years on that, as I remember, you have plenty of time to see how the design's look. It sits in your head. You're used to it. Sometimes I'll do a job really quickly, and I'm just busting. I was painting by the numbers. I'm just relying on automatics. I'm trying to get this job finished by a harsh deadline. So you're working through the night, and you're just doing 20-hour days, 2 weeks in a row, and you don't actually look at the artwork. You just trust, because you've done the basic frame, the basic sketch. The shape is down. That's trusted. That's good. Now color it and process it. So you look at it, you bust that job out. I'm finished. Send. Right. Oh, thanks, Dan. We got the job. Brilliant. Good job. And then you sit down and think, let's have a look at what I did, because I haven't even looked at it properly yet. Whereas with Chaos Engine, I had plenty of time to look at it, because, so using that as an example. So now there's not really anything else you could. There's nothing else I would really want to change, because we pretty much used every single asset we had available and squeezed everything we could squeeze into it, in terms of code. So no, but in terms of a sequel, millions of things, millions.
Okay.
Not changing anything. Enhance things that are already there. Yeah, adding more layer to what's already there.
But it seems like you had the perfect condition working on Speedball 2, and since then there hasn't been that many times that you have gotten to work on a project with as good conditions.
Yeah. And the two that I did, Hordes and Burnt Out Cop, unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond our control, got shelved, got canned. But those were two other games later on which I really enjoyed working on. Really, really enjoyed it. So, but they never got released. So nobody knows what kind of impact they might have had. But yeah, Speedball 2 and Chaos Engine, they're my favorite. It was the best. It was such a great way to work and to have that kind of freedom to express yourself and to see it successful. Yeah, it's good. It's brilliant.
And if someone who's listening now maybe works on a game, what advice would you give to reach that kind of to have those conditions? What are some of the ingredients?
Good art director, because projects are big now, right? I mean, it depends on what kind of game you're talking about. You're talking about AAA.
This could be an indie title.
Follow your heart, right? Yeah, because if it's an indie title, and then I don't know if this is quite the right word, bravery or maybe confidence to trust in your own ability to see it through. Confidence in your own self. I mean, I say bravery because after a few years, you start to see the bigger picture, and you're there. Shit, man, I'm taking a risk with this. Is it going to work? Trusting your idea. But when you're younger and you're starting out, just if you have a good idea, the people around you will let you know whether it's working or not. Yeah. So if you trust in just follow, really don't be afraid to. I mean, it depends how it's indie title, so there's nobody above you to tell you how you should do it. So just trust in your own idea and have faith in them and push everything to the hill. And if you love what you're doing, you'll work all night for that, right? It's not work. It's just what you do, and that's the beauty of it. When it doesn't feel like work, it's it's a very fierce output. A lot of stuff gets done very quickly, and if it's a small team, you don't have to go through loads of red tape to get your ideas passed. You just pass them. It's done. We like that. Put it in. Here's a working level. Brilliant. Right, let's do the next level. It's beautiful. It's just like the evolution of like walking. You're just falling forward, but constantly keeping your step. Yeah.
Okay, good. Anything else, Mattias?
No, I just thank you for allowing me to take part.
Hey, I guess you guys are really busy. Are you both really busy doing stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, and Mattias, you have a really. You just told me yesterday you have a really interesting situation right now.
Yeah, it's brand new. Up until recently, I was working on the Halo team for Microsoft.
Right.
I have just left Microsoft to actually join a smaller effort. It's brand new, so I haven't really announced it yet, and it's a little bit sensitive in the media. I don't know when you're gonna publish this, Olle, but
it's probably gonna be in the beginning of next year, sometime.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think it's gonna be okay. But yeah, it's a inspiration to hear what you just said. Also, I've been a smaller team, going from hundreds of people.
Right. Yeah. Did you feel you wanted to get out of that big working environment into a smaller team?
Not necessarily. My first game, I think I was, or the second title, we were 3 or 4 people, like you described. Yeah. And so I've done the journey from 3-4 people on a team to 500.
Wow.
It's interesting. It's going to be interesting to go back a little bit. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Wow, that's a big team to work in, man. That's huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. God, that'll be interesting. Yeah. Well, good luck, man.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing what comes out.
Yeah, me too. Right now, I just need to get a computer.
I'm laughing with you there because I know what you mean.
Yeah, the practical things.
Yeah, right. Yeah, let me get on with this.
Yeah.
I've been working in the mobile gaming industry, and starting out like just 4 friends, and then we went up to 50 people before we sold the company, which I thought was like huge. So now I'm back working together with one other guy. I like it when it's small. I think it's the best environment for me, at least.
Sure. And that's mobile stuff. Yeah, you're working on.
Yeah. It's quite it's a pretty cool thing. I can send you a link on what we're doing.
Cool, man. Yes, I'm interested.
Before we say goodbye, Dan, is there anything else that you want to say before we?
Thanks for having me on your show, Ollie, and it's good to meet you, Mattias.
Yes.
And hello to everybody out there.
Cool. Is there any way the listeners can follow you in some capacity?
There is,
if they're interested.
There is a kind of neglected fan page on Facebook, which a couple of cool guys started. Wayne Ashworth and Lee Stevens started this, and I've been putting artwork on there basically, and it's got that's on Facebook. It's called The Incredible Art of Dan Malone. I didn't name it. And there is an art station. I'm on ArtStation. I'm working on a website. But yeah, no, I'm on Twitter. Not very much. I'm a very, very casual Twitter user. I mean, I think I'll make a tweet once a year or something. There's a few people that I just follow on there mainly, and I'm on Facebook. The Incredible Art of Dan Malone, started by these guys. That's it. That's my online presence. But yeah, keep an eye on Raspberry Pi, because there will be a book coming out soon with my work in it. So that's cool. And I'll cross my fingers for they're coming Speedball 3 or 2.5. 2.5. Sorry. Let's hear it. Yeah, man, I hear you. Me too.
That's great. Okay, thanks a lot for both of you for joining in today. That's all.
Ollie, take care, guys. Cheers. Bye bye.